And hello again from Fox News in Washington. The so-called Gang of Eight, 4 Republican senators and 4 Democrats, releases its plan this week for comprehensive immigration reform. At stake, border security, the status of immigrants in this country illegally, and the votes of millions of Hispanics. And not surprisingly, it's already drawing heated criticism. Joining us now, one of the architects of the plan, Senator Marco Rubio, who is in Coral Gables, Florida. Senator, welcome back to Fox News Sunday.
Good morning. Good to be back. Thank you.
The Gang of Eight plan has a tough border enforcement component, 90% apprehension rate, 100% surveillance rate. How far are we from that now on our southwest border?
Well, in some regions, it's important to understand there is no one border. The border is broken up into 9 different sectors, and in some sectors that's probably being achieved today for different measures, but in others it's not. At least 3 sectors are far from that number, and that's what the number needs to come up to. And as our plan is going to outline, if in fact it fails to reach that metric, then the Homeland Security will lose control of this issue. It will actually be turned over to a border commission made up of local officials from those states most impacted. They will have money set aside so they can solve it for those people themselves. And so we're confident it's achievable. It'll take some time, but it's not just border security. You have to think about E-Verify as part of this bill. It's a universal E-Verify. That's a critical component of this as well, as is the entry-exit tracking system, because 40% of illegal immigrants are people that came legally and they overstayed, and we're going to deal with that issue as well. You have to all 3 work together. And they all 3 have to happen.
All right, let's go back to the border, though, just as an example. You say it's a trigger that the number, 90% apprehension rate, has to be certified by the Department of Homeland Security before the 11 million illegals, and this will be a decade from now, can begin to apply for green cards. But the Democrats on your group, your Gang of Eight, including Dick Durbin, will be on in the next segment, say, no, it's not a trigger, it's just a goal that they have to be working towards. Now, is it a trigger that has to be met, or is it a goal?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you why it's a trigger. Because basically Homeland Security will have 5 years to meet that goal. If after 5 years Homeland Security has not met that number, it will trigger the Border Commission, who will then take over this issue for them. So they'll have 5 years to get it done. They have to create these 2 plans, a fence plan. There has to be a fence component to this, and a border security plan. And if at the 5-year mark they have not achieved that 90% and 100%, then they lose the issue to the Border Commission, who will have money set aside so they can finish the job and they can get to that number. And then, of course, understand that it also includes, as part of the trigger, E-Verify, universal, and entry-exit. All 3 things have to happen, and they all 3 work together to ensure that this is the most effective enforcement system that this country's ever had, if we can get it done.
All right, let's look at the other side of this. While illegals are going to have to wait probably 15 years before they can become citizens, they get temporary legal status. I guess it's called probationary legal status as soon as the Department of Homeland Security announces that it has this plan, that it's going to begin this plan, and that's going to be within months. Question, why isn't that amnesty? Because, in fact, you are giving legal status to people who have broken the law, and most people here in Washington think once they have that status, even if it's called temporary, it's never going to get revoked, Senator.
Well, I think that's where people are misunderstanding. They don't get anything. What they get is the opportunity to apply for it. They still have to qualify for it, meaning they have to pass the background check, they have to be able to pay a registration fee, they have to pay a fine, and then they have to renew it. This is not forever. This is a renewable thing, and then they don't qualify for any federal benefits. This is an important point. No federal benefits, no food stamps, no welfare, no Obamacare. They have to prove that they're gainfully employed. They have to be able to support themselves, so they'll never become a public charge. These are all the things they're going to have to do just to keep that status. And the only thing that happens is that they will have to stay in that status until at least 10 years elapses and the triggers are met. All that has to happen. And then the only thing they get is the chance to apply for a green card via the legal immigration system. We do not award anything to anyone.
But again, and this is what the critics are saying, that once they have this, quote, temporary legal status, that nobody is ever going to revoke that and say, you know, once they've met the standards, you say they paid back taxes, they paid a fine, they've got a job, that nobody's going to revoke that. I want to put up on the screen what a critic said about the whole issue. I would vote against anything that grants amnesty because I think it destroys your ability to enforce the existing law, and I think it's unfair to the people who are standing in line and waiting to come in legally. Senator, you said that back in 2009.
And I still agree with it. This is not amnesty. Amnesty is the forgiveness of something. Amnesty is anything that says, do it illegally, it'll be cheaper and easier. Here's what people need to understand. Under the existing law today, if you are illegally in the United States, you are not prohibited from getting a green card and ultimately getting citizenship. The only thing is you have to go back to your home country, you have to wait 10 years, and then you can apply for it. And all we're saying is we're going to create an alternative to that. That'll still be in place. But we're going to create an alternative that says, okay, you want to stay here, you'll have to wait more than 10 years, you'll have to pay this fine, you'll have to pay your registration fee, you'll have to be gainfully employed, you won't qualify for any federal benefits, and then after all of that, you don't get to apply for anything until the enforcement mechanisms are in place. And I would argue to you that it will be cheaper, faster, and easier for people to go back home and wait 10 years than it will be to go through this process that I've outlined. And that's why it's not amnesty. And bottom line is, we don't award anything. You have to qualify, you have to apply for it. And that's the key distinction. So I agree, if somehow being in this country illegally is cheaper, easier, and quicker than doing it the right way, I wouldn't support that. And that's why I haven't supported certain efforts in the past, because I thought they did that.
All right. You